All right, let's get right into it. We are putting one of history's most epic figures on the stand today. And I want you to forget everything you think you know from history class because we are officially conducting a trial. The defendant? Genghis Khan. But before we even start, you might be asking, why does this guy still matter? Well, look at this number, 1 in 200. That's how many men alive today are his direct descendants. We're talking about 16 million people. So his legacy isn't just some dusty old story, it's literally written in our DNA. So, that brings us right to the heart of this trial. What's the real story here? Was he this visionary leader who, connected the world and paved the way for modern life? Or was he one of the most brutal, bloodthirsty warlords to ever walk the earth? Well, that's what we're here to figure out. First up, let's hear from the prosecution. And let me tell you, the case against Genghis Khan is built on a foundation of brutality so extreme it's hard to even wrap your head around. The evidence is just overwhelming. And this right here? This is the core of their argument. The sheer scale of death and destruction that his armies unleashed across Asia and Europe, it's almost impossible to truly comprehend. If you want to understand the human cost, just look at this chart. Before the Mongol invasion, northern China was a bustling place, full of people. After, 2/3 of the entire population was just gone. Wiped out by slaughter, by famine, by displacement, a total catastrophic collapse.
And the methods they used, they were unimaginably cruel. We're talking about tactics that were shocking even for the medieval world. Historical accounts detail using captured prisoners as human shields to absorb arrows, filling up defensive moats with bodies to make a bridge, and even pioneering a terrifying form of biological warfare by catapulting plague-ridden corpses over city walls.
Okay, but every trial has two sides, right? So now let's turn to the defense, which paints a completely different picture. Was all this brutality misunderstood? Let's hear the case for Genghis Khan, the unifier, the visionary.
First, you have to understand where this man came from. He wasn't born into power, not at all. He was born Temujin. His father was murdered, and his family was cast out, left for dead. But through pure grit and determination, he clawed his way up, uniting all of these constantly warring Mongol tribes into one single powerful nation. But here's a key point from the defense. We have to think about the context. The 13th century was a brutal time. And yeah, the Mongol army was absolutely ruthless. But were they uniquely ruthless for the era? The defense argues no. Conquest and brutality were the norm. And, crucially, the Mongols always preferred for a city to just surrender and pay tribute. The fighting was actually their second choice. You see, the massacres weren't random. They followed a very strict, if terrifying, logic. The Khan was a huge believer in diplomatic immunity. If you surrendered peacefully, you were fine. You just became part of the empire. But if you rebelled, or worse, if you killed his messengers, the punishment was absolute, total annihilation. It was a terrifyingly clear-cut system.
And this is the part of the story that just completely shatters the savage barbarian image. Under his rule, the Mongols put in place policies that were frankly centuries ahead of their time. He outlawed kidnapping brides. He gave women rights, including the ability to divorce. He promoted people based on skill and loyalty, not because of who their dad was. He practiced religious tolerance across his empire and created a universal rule of law. It's kind of mind-blowing.
The defense rests its case. But this trial isn't over. We have to look at the long-term consequences, the ripples he left in history. And first we have to go back and confront that enduring, horrifying legacy of destruction.
40 million. That is the estimated number of people killed during the Mongol conquests. To put that into perspective, that was about 10% of the entire population of the planet at the time. It is a number so large it's almost meaningless. It's just staggering.
And the destruction wasn't just about lives lost. Take what his grandson did to Baghdad. At the time, Baghdad was the intellectual and cultural capital of the world. Its libraries contained priceless knowledge from across the globe. The Mongols burned it all. They destroyed the irrigation systems that had supported the region for centuries. It was a blow to human knowledge that the world arguably never fully recovered from. But, and this is a huge but, out of all that unimaginable destruction, something else rose from the ashes. An equally powerful and equally true legacy of connection. This is the other side of the coin. After the conquests, the Mongol Empire created something called the Pax Mongolica, the Mongol Peace.
For the first time, the entire Silk Road was united under one rule, making it safe to travel and trade from China to Europe. They created an incredible postal system, a kind of Pony Express, that connected the whole empire. Ideas, technologies, doctors, artists, everything started moving across continents like never before.
And the geopolitical impact, it was immense. You can make a strong case that the Mongol conquests are what created modern Russia and China. They took these massive areas full of feuding little princedoms and violently smashed them together, creating the foundations for the massive, unified states we know today.
So there we have it. We've heard the arguments, the prosecution's horrifying case for destruction, the defense's surprising story of a visionary unifier. We've reached the end of the trial. It is time for history's final verdict.
And in the end, we're left with this incredible paradox. The very same conquests that caused death on a scale never before seen also created the largest zone of free trade and communication the world had ever known. They paved the way for unprecedented connection. You simply cannot have one part of his story without the other.
And that leads us to the final, really unsettling question that his legacy forces us to ask. Can the creation of empires, the connecting of worlds, and the flourishing of trade ever truly justify the cost in human blood? Can a leader's great achievements ever wash their hands clean? The final verdict? Well, that one is up to you.